If I remark, it is the uncertainty that charms one. A mist makes things wonderful. Volatility is a symptom that people have no idea of the underlying value. Take advantage of the ambiguity in the world. Look at something and think what else it might be. Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous aspects have caused much news in the business environment from time to time. On this note, it is time for the plenary session 1 on impact of VUCA on different industries. The session is moderated by Mr. Matthew Anthony, Academic Head, Marketing, Leadership and Innovation, iNurture Education Solutions Private Limited. I request Ms. Pushpa N, Coordinator, Department of Commerce, to introduce Sir.
It is said that beauty captures your attention, but personality captures your heart. Respected dignitaries and my dear friends, today it is an intellectual feast for all of us. I am fortunate for having been given the opportunity of introducing Dr. Matthew Anthony, Academic Head in the Creative Management at iNurture Education Solutions Private Limited. He has rendered his valuable service in capacities as Director EMEA, the world's largest loyalty management company with worldwide programs like Nectar in UK, Aeroplan in Canada, and Air Miles in Middle East. It is said that leadership is all about growing others. He has served in leadership positions at leading marketing communication agencies such as Mudra Communications, J. Walter Thompson, and many more. He has tremendous experience in the field of advertising, brand building, direct and digital marketing, and loyalty management. It is interesting to note that he is the founder of Data Talk Services, one of the first BPOs in Bangalore in 1994. On behalf of all of us, I welcome you to this function. Sir, will you please enlighten us with your illuminating talk and help this?
Thank you, Professor Pushpa. It's my pleasure to commence the plenary session 1. The speakers are already on the dais. And from left to right, I will introduce the speakers in the order in which they will be speaking. The session, as you know, is impact of VUCA on different industries. And we are really fortunate to have such an illustrious group of speakers on the stage here. I'm going to start with a session which is on VUCA and services. And Mr. K. Ramakrishnan, who is President Marketing, Future Lifestyle Fashions Limited, will start the plenary session. Mr. K. Ramakrishnan is President Marketing at Future Lifestyle Fashions Limited. His mandate involves building a marketing culture in the organization that involves new age methods and principles supported by data, analytics, and digital connect. Prior to this, Mr. Ramakrishnan was President Marketing at Cafe Coffee Day, a chemical engineer and an MBA. Sir Ramakrishnan has rich experience over 20 years that spans across different areas of business, sales, marketing, and business development. Sir Ramakrishna has worked across industries such as consumer durables, FMCG services, automobiles, IT products. Some of the big brands that he has been involved with are Prestige, Tata Tea, Tata Agni, TVS Star, TVS Apache, TVS Excel, Super, Lenovo ThinkPad, and Lenovo IdeaPad. Sir Ramakrishnan's key expertise lies in consumer insight mining and resultant innovation and business analytics and digital marketing. He's an avid reader and teacher. He also has a keen interest in sports and music. I give you Mr. Ramakrishnan. I'll finish the whole round of introduction and then I'll call upon each of the speakers. The second speaker at this session is Mr. Venkata Prasad. Mr. Venkata Girish, my mistake, who is Head Business Strategy, Krishnagiri SIR. Mr. Venkatagirish has over 2 decades of rich experience in infrastructure, airline, oil and gas industry in the areas of marketing, e-commerce, loyalty card program, strategic planning and project management. He has worked with Jet Airways, Hindustan Petroleum, Mangalore Refineries and Petrochemicals Limited and GMR Infrastructure Limited. Currently, he is the head strategy, Krishnagiri SIR of Urban Infrastructure Division. He has extensive project management expertise. He has extensive project management experience in developing mega infrastructure projects of grassroots oil refinery at Mangalore and international airport project at Istanbul, Turkey. He has also worked on projects of metro rail and seaport projects. Venkatagirish is an MBA graduate from IIM Calcutta. He is a certified PMP project management professional from PMI USA and has done civil engineering from University Visvesvaraya College of Engineering. Mr. Venkatagirish has keen interest in photography and quizzing. He is specializing in candid and portrait photography, including designing coffee table books. He enjoys traveling and has strong interest in Indian history and culture. I've been asked to offer a bouquet to each of the gentlemen. So the final speaker of the plenary session is Mr. R. Lakshminarayanan, Chief Learning Officer, iNurture Educational Solutions Private Limited. Mr. Lakshminarayanan is an alumnus of IIT Delhi and IIM Bangalore. He has spent the first 10 years of his career in retail sales, new product development and brand management with Hindustan Lever, International Best Foods and SmithKline Pharma. At HUL, he has worked on brands like Surf, Rin, Wheel, Vim, Lifebuoy, Lux, Rexona, Lidl and Dalda. At International Best Foods, he launched several new brands as well extensions of existing product brands like Rex and Brown and Polson. At SmithKline, he was head of all OTC brands, Iodex, Escamel and Pragmatar, and spearheaded the company's forays into personal care through toilet soaps and shampoos. Subsequently, Mr. Lakshminarayanan joined Ogilvy and Mather Direct as the National Account Director, handling brands that include McDowell, Kingfisher, British Airways, Modi Xerox, ITC Hotels, Standard Chartered Bank, American Express, Brook Bond, Titan and others. Moved to Chennai as head of Ogilvy office, he has worked across categories like personal care, Pond's and Vaseline, cycles, TI, pain balms, Amrutanjan, beverages, Kasturi tea, retail, Nali 6 and many more. This was followed by a stint at DDB Mudra Communication, where he held several roles, Vice President South, Chief Operating Officer New Initiatives, and finally CEO, Mudra Marketing Services. He has been an executive director on the Mudra board for over a decade. By the time he moved out in 2008 to join iNurture, where he is the Chief Learning Officer. He is also an independent director on the boards of Jyoti Consumer Products, Jyoti Fabric Care, and Jyoti Labs. I now wish to invite Mr. Ramakrishnan to please give his address.
With due apology and the delay, I request Vasu sir to welcome Matthew sir.
Hello? Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be among youngsters like you. I wish I was on the other side, though. Okay, so when Mr. Lakshminarayan requested, and of course Mr. Anthony requested me to speak about VUCA, I was wondering whether I'm really the right person to speak about this. But when they restricted it to the area of services, I thought perhaps there are some experiences in my life which I can pull out of and possibly summarize it for some learnings, takeaways that we may have as to how do we handle all that is comprising in VUCA. That is VUCA for you because the screen went off. Okay, so I think the best way to handle any form of volatility, uncertainty, etc. is, I think, not to panic and be calm and composed. Like when the screen goes off, one option is to say, oh God, what happened? Can you help me and 5 people? Or wait and see if it comes back on its own to life. To my luck, it did. Okay, so fundamentally it's about being calm and composed. So there are many ways in which one can think about this concept of volatility, uncertainty and ambiguity and stuff. But I think the best way, or the way I would like all of you to take this, is that take it with a pinch of optimism and not with any shade of negativity in it. Let me explain that. I mean, if you draw a graph of, let's say, growth versus time, ultimately we all believe that life will go upward, right? I mean, Indian economy, whatever growth rate that we have, ultimately we'll get to some percentage growth. World economy will grow, people will grow, we'll all get better cars, better homes. All of us will have better lives. That's an optimism that exists. But in the process of getting from point A to point B, which is above point A, there will be thousands of, those small waves, which will probably take us up and drastically take us down. And it's like the Sensex, one day up, one day down. But if you take a 5-year window, you will see a 5,000, 10,000 appreciation. And that optimism is something I think we should all take with us when even thinking about something called as VUCA. Because otherwise, generally what tends to happen is, oh, the world is going to come to an end kind of a option, leads us to take decisions which are perhaps for now, not even today. And I think most of us, if we are trained to be managers, are paid to think about decisions for tomorrow. Whereas a short-term thinking will end up making us decide for just this moment. So what's the paradox that we see among consumers? One is that the consumer is changing. Okay, looking at the consumer, we change. We see the consumer changing, and so therefore we tend to change. So this change process is like a cycle, right? It doesn't just stop. Because I change, I see you change, you see me, you change. So this change is keeping on. It's not a process which is stopping, or there's no end point to this. So to that extent, then customers are not going to be sitting ducks in any true sense. So we've been talking about volatility, change, etc. for donkey's years. I mean, if you had a seminar 20 years back also, they'll say change is inevitable, change is the only thing that is permanent, and so on and so forth. So what is so different about the change that you and I are seeing today? One is that we all have so much of information, right? We all know how much of information is there to give us. If any of your professors gives you a project, the moment you type in the topic of the project in Google, you have 70 pages. So you don't know what is important, what is less important, and so on. And I can say that with confidence that there is information flow because I represent this side of the table, all of whom did projects before Google, right? All of us did our education pre-Google days. I wonder how we ever did that. So whereas now today you're flooded with this level of information. Second, the availability. I currently represent Future Lifestyle, which is very close to this institution, right? There's Central right here. So you walk into Central or you walk into Big Bazaar, there's plenty available and plenty to choose from. So what do you choose? How do you make the consumer even think what to choose? Control is entirely with the user. You can only speak. Whether it is heard or not is entirely left to the consumer. I mean, these are not times when you can actually decide on when you will speak and when you will be heard. You can speak and hope that somewhere somebody is listening to you. Whatever is the experience is getting shared instantly, right? All of you. Wherever you go, here's a selfie of mine, this is where I've been, right? Instant sharing. So sharing is not always necessarily positive experiences. When there are negative experiences, which is even worse, don't ever get to this place kind of sharing. Decisions are not individual, decisions are in the collective. I mean, I'm sure as students, you will all agree with me that none of your decisions are taken by you, yourself as a whole, but you want to see if the whole group is in consonance with the decision that you're taking. And all the time connected. There's not one moment of time when people are not connected, right? It's not that I do something here, I'll go out and talk about it. No, I want to talk about it just now. So this connected nature exists. So in this situation, here's just a bunch of very, very simple rules. One is, there is a lot of noise. This uncertainty creates a lot of noise. We all know the difference between noise, right? We know what is noise, which is unwanted sound is noise. There is noise. So we need to have the ability to filter out that unwanted sound or noise and see if we can ignore it. Second, whether variability or uncertainty or complexity, simplicity helps at all situations. Can we always remember the basics that we have? What are the fundamental principles, or what they call first principles of learning that we have? If that simplicity can help us take us somewhere. We don't have to recreate the wheel every time there's a problem. Wheels have been created by forefathers and forefathers and whatever it is. So we just have to understand those principles and use those to try and find solutions. Important to take a stand rather than moving along with the wave, right? Today I believe in this, no, tomorrow I believe in something else. This is particularly true of brands and businesses. Can they take a stand to withstand any situation of variability? We spoke about optimism earlier, right? I'm going to explain some of these with the example of Cafe Coffee Day, because I just joined this organization called Future Retail, and I was with Cafe Coffee Day till about a month back. So some examples here will really, really help. One, very often, we've strongly believed in Cafe Coffee Day that you can actually be a pushover. What does it mean? Contrary to popular wisdom, it's okay to give customers the control about the brand, right? You are not the one that defines what this brand is. You can let the customer decide. What I mean by that is, Cafe Coffee Day might decide that I'm opening a coffee shop where there will be coffee, stroke, snacks, stroke, whatever provided at a particular time. But what the consumer takes out of it can be millions of things. If you ask yourselves, how many of you actually go to Cafe Coffee Day because it's a coffee shop? Some will say, I go there because I want to hang out with my friends. Some, maybe not here, but outside might say, I want to hang out with my boyfriend or girlfriend. Some might say, I want to have a meeting. I want to have a silent discussion. Or some might even say, I just want to sit there and, have a meeting with myself, which means figure out what I want to do. So it's okay. Please give that control to the customer is what this brand is saying. Uncertainty times or whatever, if you are sure that you have strong principles and you stand for a certain set of things, it is okay to be a pushover and let the consumer control your life. Second, it's not, why should we say I am the brand and you're the consumer? I think it can be a conglomerate group, right? This group kind of thinking where both are together, joining the group really, really helps in situations of great times, in situations when the times are not so great. Because both of you understand each other's problems. Many times, it is important to just suggest to the consumer and then let the consumer take whatever take he has to about it. You don't have to be A for apple. You don't have to say 1 + 1 = 2. Consumer knows the answers. I mean, if you take Cafe Coffee Day, starting from the byline that they have, which is a lot can happen over coffee, right? They don't tell you what that lot is. It's like 3 dots. You complete it the way you want. So therefore, you let the consumer decide on what exactly they are thinking about. So suggestions are important. Now, the same thing stated as freedom is what they love, which means freedom to perceive the brand the way they want to rather than the way that the brand is wanting them to perceive it. Now, there is no real brand story. There's only a consumer story, right? How much the brand is part of the consumer life or consumer story will determine whether the brand is able to come out of times which are good, bad, uncertain, any way the case may be. Now, each of us today is a content writer, which means each of us writes stories, right? Every day, every one of you will be writing a story or the other. Now, what I mean by that is the story can be 2 lines on your Facebook page, right? The story can be 1 tweet. The story can be 1 forward on WhatsApp. Any of these is a story. If in the story that you write about your life, if the brand is able to be part of that story, then the brand has achieved something. And when in such situation, whether life is bad, whether uncertainty exists or not, if it's part, you don't stop telling stories, right? In any situation, good or bad, you continue to tell stories. So therefore, if the brand finds its way into your story, it doesn't matter whether the outside world is bad, whatever the situation is. There are 2 small examples that I would like to quote here. This was early days, let's say 2011 and stuff, when there were not very many brands which were in the bandwagon of acquiring fans on Facebook and stuff like that. Cafe Coffee Day was one of the top 5 or top 6 brands in India which reached a target of 1 million fans on Facebook. Today I think there are 100 brands, I don't know. So this 1 million when we reached, one situation was to say, okay, here I have reached 1 million, here's a treat from me to you. Second is to say, people who have helped us make this 1 million, how can we make them part of their life? Or better still, how can we be part of their lives? So to that extent, the best way of celebration which we decided was, at that point of time, Cafe Coffee Day had 1,000 cafes. Today there are 1,600. So we said in each one of the 1,000 cafes, at a particular time and day, we will have a ceremony of cake cutting, ceremonial cake cutting. The cake will be cut by a consumer, provided to the consumer, and of course it's free of cost and stuff like that. So this is all that we said. And then the situation the idea, all of these found their way into people's stories, which said that, you know what, I have been a CCD fan, I'm going to be part of this story, are you coming? People started sharing with their friends. Not only before, after they went the situation, people started posting pictures. I was at this place, I was at JP Nagar, I was at Malleshwaram Cafe, were you there? So therefore, what I'm trying to say is the brand has planted itself in the stories that people are spreading among themselves. Not as easy anymore, given the huge number of brands that have come into in the space. But the issue or the idea that I'm trying to say here is, how can you be part of the story of the consumer rather than making the consumer follow your story? Now, I just want to explain this by means of a small film. There's no sound output here. There's an issue with the jack, but I think you don't need sound. This is a brand, all of you have heard of the brand IKEA, right? IKEA is a furniture brand. Now, one way for IKEA would be to say, I make great furniture, come and enjoy. The other way is to say, can we be part of the life story of the consumer? So just see for yourself what this has to say. Sorry about the sound. So I don't know how clear it was. I don't know how visible it was from the back. But fundamentally what they're saying is, in 5 days, the entire life of this region of New York called Manhattan, they occupied, to convert them as part of the life story of the consumer. Which means if you're on a bus stop, here I am. If you have a pet, here I am. If you're doing this, if you need a pen. So that is what is one example of saying, if you can become part of the life story of the consumer, then it doesn't matter whether there is V, U, C or A, right? There's another film, but it will require sound, so I'm skipping that for the moment. So clearly what it says is that there's really no one size fits all. So to succeed, you will have to be something to every one of the consumers that you have. If it's a student, you have to be something for the student. If it's a mother, you've got to be something for the mother. If it's a teacher, you have to be something for the teacher. So that becomes an important part of lesson number 6 for VUCA. So therefore, the parameters of control have moved from brands, particularly the service business, they have moved away from the brands into the hands of the consumer. So the brands have to change. So simple 5-point principle which we believe of uncertainty is that, 1, hold on to what you have. Secure, don't chase. Now what do I mean by this? There are 2 means of growth. One means of growth is for a service business. Either you find new customers to start coming into your service, whether it's a cafe coffee day or a future lifestyle or any of those. Or you make your existing consumers come more often. Both are growth, right? If you are already a customer and if you're going 3 times a month, is there a way in which I can make you come a 4th time? That is also growth. It need not always be finding somebody like you newly to come into this place. In situations of uncertainty, it's much, much important for people to hold on to what they have, which is why the importance of programs like loyalty. I mean, Matthew is an expert in this space of programs like Aeroplan and Nectar and stuff like that. What do they do? What they do is that they have information about consumers on their consumption, which means they understand consumer behavior and hopefully influence consumer behavior using this program. So the importance of something like loyalty or something like analytics or something like information on the behavior of consumers is going to be the centerpiece of management in times of uncertainty, because you don't know whether a new customer is going to come or how many of them are going to come, but you know that you had a consumer and he or she possibly had a positive experience, and how can you use that positive experience in your favor by getting the person to visit you a little more. So therefore, hold on to what you have. Second, this I said before, which is that not getting carried away and taking a stand, which is to say, okay, the entire e-commerce world is talking about 50% off and 60% off, so should all retailers get into the whole rat race and say 50%, 60% off, or should we say, I'll take a stand. The stand that I take is that, yes, I will provide value to consumers, But I will provide an experience to the consumer which the rest of the world or the new world or the changed scenario does not provide. So that stand is an important thing rather than falling into the bandwagon at all points of time. Like I said before, simplicity is never ever overstated. One doesn't have to think of complex mechanics, and you don't need regression models at all points of time. Simple understanding of behavior can help you determine how you can influence the behavior for the future. And like I said earlier, noise. Eliminate noise, focus on what you set out to achieve, what have you achieved so far, and therefore where are the gaps, and therefore be very clear about what you're focusing on. And of course, be optimistic, and it doesn't matter whether there is VUCA or not. Yes, be focused, but there is growth that is to be had for each and every one of us. Thank you so much for the opportunity to make this presentation. I want to apologize to say that I will not be able to sit through the session in full because I'm running a little tight in terms of my schedules. I have another program to go. My apologies for that. But if you have questions, two ways it can be handled. One of my mentors for life, Mr. Lakshminarayan, will take questions on my behalf. Or you can mail me your questions, ramki70@gmail.com. You can perhaps circulate the mail ID, and I'll be happy to answer questions on this behalf.
So you will take two questions for
right
now?
No problems.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So any questions from the audience? Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah.
In terms of, when it comes to services sector, I would like to know your views on, we've all talked about customer, the kinds of customer, very business, today's business. So what you would like to say when it comes to the ultimate delivery of the service,
Yeah.
in terms of kinds of change and
Right.
because ultimately the people who are going to empower the employees.
Right.
So I would like to know your view.
I didn't get your
In terms
question.
of in a service industry.
Correct.
So what are your views on empowering the employees?
Empowering the employees.
Empowering the employees in terms of tackling this uncertainty.
Right. Right. Okay. So this is a question for which there is no clear black and white answer, but I'll try my best to do that. This is like saying service industry is something which is not 100% standardized and not 0% standardized, right? If you're in the engineering business, if you're in the components business, 100% standardization is a mantra or a religion. 100% standardization does not work in the case of